kids, we're in the kitchen again, and today we're going to be making one of my favorite soups, French onion. Let me show you what I got out for the cook. So to make French onion soup, you just need a few basic ingredients. Some stock. This is some pre-made store-bought stock. I like it because of the sodium level, if you can see it here or not, but it's only 50 milligrams per serving, which is great. I got a bunch of red onions and yellow onions and a scallion, and some beef bouillon broth. So I'm going to start off by getting those onions chopped up. There is a lot of different ways you can chop an onion. A lot of times they'll tell you to leave the hairy end on. Whoops. You know, cut this part off, leave that on, take the skin off. That's tough. Or you can cut that part off, skin it, like I did, and do it this way. It seems to me that this, for me, is the easiest. But however you do it is okay. And then we're going to chop them up. Okay, so we got our onions in half, right? I got that one peeled. And some folks will tell you to, of course, lay this down on your cutting board. Take your knife and go through it here a couple different times, and then cut this way. If you just cut it this way and then chop it this way, works just as good because the pieces will fall apart by themselves. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to granny chop it, which means they're not going to all be uniform, which is fine. You can granny chop it, or if you can make it really precise if you want to. But the main thing is you just got to chop them all up. Now here's a tip when you're cutting onions. Sometimes you're going to have a really hard core here. That's where the roots were connected and in the ground. And that sometimes is just really hard to eat. So my recommendation is just take and cut it out. You might like it better that way. Okay, I got all my onions cut up, white, red, and I misspoke earlier. This is a shallot or a shallot, depending on where you are in the world. So we have 1 shallot, 2 red onions, and 4 or 5 white onions. So I'm going to put them in my pan with some butter and oil, and we're going to saute these off first. Okay, so I'm over to the stove now. I have a 4-quart cast iron pot on heat to warm up. I've transferred all of my onions over into a bowl, my red, my white, and my 1 shallot. Waiting for this to warm up, and then we'll start the cook. My pot is hot. Got it on between a 5 and a 6 on the electric. I'm going to add some oil. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the homemade butter that we made. That's some of that right there. That's another video you can check out if you'd like, homemade butter. And I'm going to put in about the equivalent of about 1 tablespoon, roughly. And the oil will keep the butter from burning. And that's what we want. And as we've got this going here, we can see it's nice and hot. We're going to start adding our onions and shallots. And we're going to start sauteing. I'm just going to dump them in a little bit at a time here to get those started. I'm going to stir them with a wooden spoon. And if need be, I might turn the temperature up just a bit more. In fact, I think I'm going to turn it up to about a 6.5 or so on the stove. Get those to saute just a tiny bit and add the rest. Oh, remember we were talking about taking the core of the onion out where the root is? This is what happens if you don't do that. I missed that piece when I did it. You see how it's a nice big chunk? I'm going to have to end up breaking it up. And if you can see the bottom of the core there in the piece of onion. So I could have done that a little bit better, but considering it's all going to be mushed up into a soup, I don't think that little tiny bit's going to make a big deal. Okay, I can start to see that change color just a tiny bit. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of our onions in. Here we go. Alrighty. Grab the last bit out of the plate here. And now I'm going to salt them to let them start to sweat and continue to saute. I'm going to use some Himalayan sea salt on the grinder and just grind it in there. I don't want to add too much because the beef bouillon is really salty on its own. And since we're trying to watch our salt levels, I don't want to make it too salty initially, but just enough to sweat that. So if I had to measure that, that would have been about 1/4 teaspoon of salt is all. So I'm going to stand here and stir and cook and saute until these get melted down to a nice golden brown. So this has been cooking for about 15-20 minutes or so, and you can start to see that some of the onions there are browning. So what I did in the meantime is I measured out 2 tablespoons of the beef bouillon, the powderized beef bouillon, and I'm just going to sprinkle that on top here like that. And then I'm going to add 1 quart of chicken stock. Like that. And about 1/2 quart of water. Roughly. Put a lid on this thing and just let it simmer. Alright, so I've got the lid on. I've turned the stove down to about a 3, and we're just going to let it cook for a while. Okay, I am back. It's been, a couple hours. I've just had it simmering on the stove. Let's take a look and see what it looks like. Alrighty, here you go. Oh yeah, baby. That looks yummy. So the onions are cooked. We got a nice, wonderful broth. We'll just kind of scoop ourselves some over here into this bowl I've got here. That looks good, doesn't it? Now for the croutons. So over on my cutting board I have some croutons I've made from some homemade bread. I just cut them up and toast them. And we're going to put those in there like that. I've got a few more coming in on the toaster. They're not done yet. And then so you do that. Just top a little bit with your favorite cheese, which is mozzarella. Now you could warm this up again if you wanted to. Mine's pretty warm from right off of the stove from cooking. So I'm just going to add a few more croutons and I'm going to eat it. Okay, the rest of my croutons are done. Put those in there like that. Maybe a little more cheese. And let's try a taste. All right. Got the broth on there. That's good. That's really good. I'm gonna enjoy that. And it's not too hot either, which is great. So, hope you try it. Enjoy.